Hello and welcome to Game Changer Live. We created this show to inspire with topics around coaching, mindset, emotions, mental hacks, positivity, and more. And we endeavor to bring you the most unedited and authentic content that you could get, so that who you see, if you resonate with us, is who you get to work with if you choose to work with us. Our shows air every Wednesday at 3:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and we bring occasional guests. And together, we inspire. That's our motto. My name is Daniel Connor, and I'm a certified professional coach and International Coaching Federation leader for my local chapter, as well as an energy leadership master practitioner. And I'm the owner of Connor's Coaching as well as the host of Game Changer Live. And my clients hire me when they're feeling stuck and they're ready to get unstuck. But they maybe don't know how. They don't know what that looks like. They're ready to find a more fulfilling and a more purposeful life, and they just don't know how to get there. So they hire me to help them find it. Our goal is very simple, that each day we wake up to a slightly better version of ourselves in the mirror. And nothing feels more like being stuck and not knowing how to get to where you want to be than the topic of our show today, ennui. No, you're not mishearing me. Oh, and I forgot to turn on my captioning device. I did the test and then I didn't turn it back on, so I apologize for that. I even programmed it. There we go. I even programmed it to type the word ennui correctly. And it's not doing it for some reason. Ennui. There we go. See, unedited and authentic. My experience of this emotion is recent, actually. But first of all, let's define it. So what is ennui? Well, it is a difficult emotional state where you feel disinterest in your surroundings, or you're feeling like you have nothing to do, that life is boring or dull. And I want to give a disclaimer before I get into the story of how I experienced this emotion 2 weeks ago. We're talking about a difficult emotion here, something that doesn't feel comfortable. And I first want to say that all emotions are valid. Every emotion that human beings experience is created by our biology, by our brain, based off of our observation of the world around us, based on our biology, and based on our experience of the world, our history. And yes, there are emotions out there that don't feel good, but have valid purposes on a biological, on a neurological level. Stress, the hormone around stress, cortisol, is important functioning for the functioning of your mental health, of your ability to recall information. Without cortisol, we would have very difficult short-term memory problems. And so these challenging or difficult or uncomfortable emotions can feel like we feel shame or guilt that we are experiencing them. We're hard on ourselves for experiencing them, but they are perfectly normal, perfectly natural, perfectly reasonable things to be experienced. However, there is an indicator that they can become overwhelming. And that indicator is when they prevent you from living your daily life the way that you normally would. If they prevent you from going to work, prevent you from going to school, or prevent you from taking care of yourself, keeping your house clean, keeping yourself bathed, your hygiene well, and feeding yourself. If those things can't be done as a result of these emotions, that is the line in which it needs to be addressed by a professional therapist or counselor or psychiatrist or a crisis helpline. Our show today is not meant to handle emotions of that scale. We're here to talk about emotions when they're not interfering with our daily life. But they're still uncomfortable emotions, and we would be more optimal without them. That's the purpose of our show today. So if you're experiencing ennui, if you listen to the show and you're like, that is how I'm feeling, and it's interfering with your daily life, please find a therapist. My best recommendation is to go to psychologytoday.com and look for a psychologist that takes your health insurance. It's a great resource. Most psychologists in the world are out there. Most therapists, clinical social workers, all sorts are out there, and a lot of them have sliding scales if you need that kind of help. So there we go. Okay, disclaimer done. I might mention it again, but our show is going to be two parts here. We're going to define the emotion so that we understand what it is thoroughly. And then we're going to talk about ways to overcome it. So I mentioned that 2 weeks ago I experienced ennui, this feeling of listlessness, this feeling of dissatisfaction with the life that's going on around. So um, my husband just recently got a new job where he stopped working from home and had to go to an office, which he loves. He loves that. He likes actually going into an office. So more power to him. Not everyone feels that way, but he's fortunate that that is something that he enjoys. For the last 3 years, though, he's been in the house. He's gone on walks with me. We've taken his coffee breaks together. We've gone on, kind of lunch walks, or we've eaten lunch together. And we live in a very small house, so it's felt like I've lost half of the house, right? And I also was feeling like, well, this is an opportunity for me to actually get some deep cleaning done. Um, and ironically, cleaning is one of those things that I experience, that I use as a tool to help motivate myself out of difficult emotions. It's a technique that I use to get some momentum when I'm feeling depressed, because taking care of yourself is important, and it shows to yourself that you're worthwhile. So when I have difficult emotions, when I'm feeling these kinds of listlessness or boredom, cleaning is a really good solution for me. And I was really looking forward to cleaning because I wasn't going to be interrupting him during his daily work when I did that. I have clients during the day, but they're not all the time, and so in between clients, I like to clean. My dirty secret is out now. But this time, cleaning wasn't working, and I had deep cleaned the bathroom, the kitchen, the floors. I had dusted, I'd wiped off all of the surfaces, and I ran out of things to clean, and I was still feeling this sense of listlessness and boredom and frustration. Unfortunately, my usual fix just did not cut it with this particular episode of ennui. And I couldn't focus on any of my other hobbies, reading sci fi books, uh, watching sci-fi TV shows or comic shows or cooking shows. I love cooking shows as well. It's not all sci-fi here. I couldn't enjoy video games. I couldn't think of something that I hadn't already tried. I was stuck. And when I hit the point where I realized I needed to do something about it, I actually was laying in my bed, staring up at the ceiling and wishing that I was just a robot that I could shut off until the next day when I could clean something again. I had this sense that I was burdened by nothingness. And that is ennui. Ennui. My goodness, this closed captioning is not great at changing the words. So, ennui is a complex emotion, and it doesn't feel great. It is both anxiety and depression at the same time. In fact, it's anxiety about depression. It feels like there's a burden of the present, or an overwhelm of nothingness. I I can get real poetic here. So it's like being a vulture in a barren wasteland that's hovering over the desert, desperately looking for something to satiate its endless hunger and not finding anything. That is ennui. And if you've watched our show before, you'll know that that definition, that it's both depression and anxiety at the same time, sounds a bit like an oxymoron. And it is to an extent. And the reason for that is my favorite quote from a philosopher is Lao Tzu, Laotzu, because I know that they're not going to, it's lawsuit is what they said, but that's not, it's Lao Tzu. Anyway, my favorite quote from Lao Tzu is about depression and about anxiety. He said, "You're depressed if you're living in the past, and you're anxious if you're living in the future." So, how could you be both? How could this be both depression and anxiety at the same time? Don't you have to be in one or the other? And the truth is that there's a little bit more, I don't know, je ne sais quoi, I'm just going to make my web captioner explode today. There's a little je ne sais quoi in his explanation, because the anxiety about living in the future isn't just thinking about the future, it's trying to control the future. And ennui is trying desperately to not feel ennui. It's trying not to feel bored. It's trying not to feel listless. It's trying to control your thoughts, your feelings, and your emotions so that in the future you don't feel that way. So, of course, um, you're feeling both anxious and depressed because you're anxious about feeling depressed. So, notice that I didn't say the other half of that quote, that you're at peace if you're living in the present. Another way of looking at ennui is that it is a hurricane of emotion that circles around the present, not finding anything to occupy it, not finding anything that it can grasp onto, hollow in the center where the present is. And it is only about the past and the future. It's not about the present. The complete opposite emotion to ennui is flow. It's not entertainment, it's not excitement, it's flow. Flow is feeling completely occupied by something, completely engrossed in some activity. It doesn't have to be entertainment. It can be meditation, it can be peace, it can be focus, it can be art, it can be creative. So now we've defined ennui, and now we get to talk about how to overcome it. And the very first step for overcoming any difficult emotion that I've learned from neuroscience is name it to tame it. I had to check my um, web captioner to make sure that it didn't mess that up as well. So what does that mean, name it to tame it? Well, by talking about how you're feeling, you create consciousness around that feeling. And your mind is the source of that feeling. So if it's conscious about the feeling, it can do something about the feeling. You're sending a very strong signal to your brain to knock it off. This is not working. This is not ideal. This is not how I want to feel. Naming the emotion helps you overcome the emotion. It helps define the emotion, and it creates boundaries for the emotion so that it doesn't affect other areas of your life. That's why therapy works. If you do nothing other than talk to a therapist about how you're feeling, you're getting name it to tame it right there. So Of course, you know that the first activity is going to be to stand in front of a mirror, state the emotion that you're experiencing, and tell yourself how you're feeling. Be explicit. Tell yourself what you've tried, what has worked, and what hasn't worked. And remind yourself, this is the second part, remind yourself that this is temporary. The second thing to do is to decide if it is impacting your life. If it's impacting your ability to go to work, to go to school, this goes back to the disclaimer I gave earlier. If it's impacting your ability to take care of yourself, to feed yourself, to bathe, to keep your house clean, then seeking professional help is essential for overcoming this emotion. If, however, you're like me, where I was still meeting all of my appointments, still putting on my show, still cleaning the house, still bathing. In fact, I was in better state of taking care of myself than ever during this period of time. Then therapy doesn't necessarily need to be the answer. And I am not advocating against therapy. I think therapy is a hugely important model of our healthcare system. However, it is not great at optimizing us. It's great at helping us get to a state of normality, but it's not great at getting us to a state of hyperfunctionality or feeling great. That's where positive psychology and coaching come in. Coaching is all about finding our optimal state, finding who we want to be, not just how to get out of a pit, but how to thrive once we're out of that pit. So, again, ennui, the very first step, name it to tame it. The second step is to evaluate whether or not therapy is the right choice. If therapy is the right choice, go to the site psychology.com or psychologytoday.com. Try both of those. They have lists of therapists that cover all sorts of different insurance models. And some of them also do pro bono work. So you can find therapists in your price range that can help you if you need that help. The second one is to kind of decide what might be some of the causes that are causing you to feel this way. So there's a couple of common causes. There's infinite reasons that you might be feeling this emotion, but there are some common causes that I've seen in my life and I've seen in my client's life. The first one is that your mind is looking for something new because it is tired of the same old routine. You've done the same thing over and over and over, and it needs something fresh. So the same old solutions like cleaning the house aren't going to work. The second is that your mind might be overwhelmed by too much stimulation of too many varieties, that you've read too many books, you've watched too many TV shows, you've played too many video games. Your brain just can't handle any more input and it doesn't want too much of that stuff. It can't handle it. It needs to settle on something, one thing that it can focus on. A third possible area, and the most important, is the opposite of ennui, is flow. Flow is the state of being completely engrossed in the present. So the third reason that you may be experiencing ennui is that you are lacking in flow. And flow is not entertainment. Flow is the ability to focus and be totally engrossed in something that you're doing. So if those are the reasons you're experiencing the emotion, then you have very clear solutions for overcoming those issues. Trying something that you haven't tried before, picking up a new hobby. That's what I did. Actually, I did something a little bit different. I went back to a hobby that I had abandoned a long time ago. I went to a store, I bought some watercolors, I bought some watercolor paper, and I started doing my best to regain some of my lost artistic ability. Um, Art is actually a really great modality as well because it's a little bit like journaling in that you're channeling your creativity, you're channeling part of your brain in a form that's visual that you can put some kind of analysis work into. So you're painting your emotions is a little bit like journaling. And in my case, I built a seascape. It's not great. There's some maroon birds. I don't know why I picked maroon. Anyway, I'm never going to show that picture. It's going to go in the shredder. But it did help me overcome my ennui. And it helped me focus on the present. It helped me engross my mind in something and find flow. Meditation can also be a very effective way of finding stillness if your mind is too overwhelmed by too many different types of stimulation. It needs white space just as much as any good portrait. It needs emptiness, it needs hollowness, it needs the ability to sit with nothing. And that can be a very uncomfortable place to be with ennui because it's so close to ennui. That's the center of the storm, is that stillness. That's what ennui has been trying to avoid. So, of course, that feels difficult. But if you can find yourself embracing it, that can also calm the storm. Doing calming breath work, can help focus on the present. The one thing that ennui can't handle, because remember that the present is peace. And finally, consciousness. Being consciously in control of your behavior so that instead of reacting to the emotions that your brain is signaling you to experience, you're acting in a way that's conscious and consistent with the person that you want to be tomorrow. I am so thankful that I have had this experience to be able to share with you because I want you to know that I'm not just here preaching like a sermon from a place of privilege. I've experienced the difficult emotions that everyone on earth experiences. I'm human just like you. And it's okay to be who you are. You are a miracle. And you have the ability to overcome most of the emotions that you experience. Thank you so much for being here with me live today as I show this show. And if you're watching in the future, thank you so much for watching this video. I would really appreciate it if you just took a moment of time and liked this video with the thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. And leave a comment on what inspired you today or what you experienced that helps you overcome ennui. I I hate this web captioner. Oh gosh. Okay, so anyway, thank you so much for being part of the show. We'll be back next week with more topics, and I think that we're going to be talking about something goal setting related. So that's a little teaser. And tune in next week at 3:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for more about our game changers. Bye.